I'm Zach Kaufman, here to welcome you to the first ever podcast between myself and Ryan D'Amico. Welcome, and thanks for tuning in to part one of our AFC breakdown. We initially recorded parts 1 and 2 together, but we were having such a great time. We had so much content that it went way longer than we expected. So we actually decided to break it down into 2 parts for you. You're about to enter into part 1 of our AFC breakdown. On this episode, we're going to start with a brief intro about ourselves, why we're doing this, and what we're excited about. We'll ask, is Lesean McCoy the only reason to watch the Buffalo Bills this year? We argue about whether or not Jordan Matthews is comparable to Andre Iguodala. Zach tries to predict how many current Jets players will still be in the NFL in 2 years, and we debate if the Jets will ever win a game. We also dive into whether the Cleveland Browns are on a path to be the next Raiders. All that, plus random shoutouts to Philly, Rich Gannon, and Mark Davis's hair. Should be a great time. Enjoy.
What's up, Zach? How are you doing, man?
I'm really excited to get started, man. So we are here to start our podcast. We'll be getting into some good football stuff coming up here. NFL's about to start. College football is about to start. And we are both very excited to get to watching, getting to discussing, getting to talk about these football games coming up. So the reason we wanted to start this podcast is we both love sports. We've talked about them. We grew up together, going from elementary school the whole way through our lives. I have been a Dallas Cowboys fan my whole life. I grew up in hated territory with Eagles, including my friend right here, Ryan D'Amico, that I can always talk to, have good conversations. I moved up for college. I went just below New York. I had to be there with all these Giants fans while they won 2 Super Bowls. Now I'm living down in Virginia with all these Redskins fans. So I've been all through the NFC East, all around all these rivals, and now I'm back with another rival to talk about football and have a great time.
Yeah, man, that is kind of one cool thing about you and I, that it's kind of ironic that we've kind of come together and started this little podcast, go on this cool little journey together. When we were younger, obviously we've been really close, but the one thing that kind of we never agreed on was, kind of our favorite football teams. I mean, you were the Cowboys fan. I was an Eagles fan. I mean, that's hatred right there. But one thing that definitely always lasted kind of was the friendship, and that's kind of something that I value. I value your friendship. You're definitely one of my better friends, and I mean, what better person to do a podcast with about something you love than one of your better friends. So it really couldn't ask for a better situation here. I think what we got going on is going to be really exciting. I think it's going to be fantastic to the listeners. I think whoever tunes in takes the hour or so out of their day or night to listen to our show, I think is really gonna for one, I think they're gonna learn something, because look, I've got into a couple conversations. You can probably even chime on this. You're a big radio podcast listener. I think nowadays with certain podcasts, mainly with mainstream media, it's hard to find a show that actually teaches you something. I feel like when I listen and watch these shows, I don't learn anything. It's just a bunch of back and forth, people trying to be funny,
bunch of headlines. Yeah,
just headlines. It's you don't really learn a lot. So I think
I gotcha.
That's one thing I really want to bring to this, is just kind of to at least throw some stuff out that maybe people didn't know about, certain teams or some stats, whatever the case may be. That's kind of what I want to add to it.
Yep, I'm definitely excited to get started here, and we're going to get right into it. We're going to start with an AFC breakdown today. Next week, we'll come with an NFC breakdown. We'll get into both of our favorite teams, talk a little bit about that Cowboys-Eagles rivalry, go through the rest of the NFC. We'll be coming up with college football after that, and then we'll be heading into the NFL season, so we'll be getting to talk about some of that. And we're going to jump right into it. First thing we're going to talk about is the AFC East.
Also known as the New England Patriots division.
I wrote it down as the most boring division in football.
Really
you know
is.
exactly what's going to happen with with these teams. You got the high end with the Patriots, easily an elite team, Super Bowl contender. Then it really drops off. You're going to have struggling to be 500, Miami and Buffalo, and then the Jets are going to be so bad. So bad.
They might be one of the worst. They are going to be one of the worst teams in the playoffs. And I really think if you look at their schedule,
They don't have a shot at the playoffs.
Well, that for sure. Plus, they really may struggle to win 2 or 3 games.
It's gonna be ugly there. So, you want to start at the top or the bottom of this division?
Let's start at the top. I mean,
Right.
with the defending Super Bowl champs, I mean, everyone knows about them. Look, it's Tom Brady, it's Bill Belichick. I mean, they've been doing this for over a decade. I mean, they're a perennial powerhouse in not just this division, that they seem to win every year, except for the one year that Brady got hurt, which they were a wild card team, and I believe the Dolphins won the division that year. But yeah, I mean, what do you say about the Patriots anymore, man? I mean, really, like, what do you say about them besides, like, yeah, they have Tom Brady and they have Bill Belichick and they just keep cycling in new players and they still find ways to win? I mean, what do you even say about them at this point?
It's always interesting to see the new pieces they get. They bring in these guys that are leftovers from other teams. A lot of times you look at their running back situation, it's exactly that. They make big moves like the Brandon Cooks move. So I'm excited to see how everything fits together. They've got their core team back. It's always up in the air on what's going to happen with Gronk, but he's one of the most incredible players in the league that they have when he's on the field. Amazing. And they filled into the backup with Dwayne Allen.
Right. Exactly.
They just do an amazing job every single year of bringing in those other players, filling in their holes, even as a Super Bowl winning team. Yeah. They're still making improvements, still bringing in a superstar wide receiver, and they're going to be at the top of the league once again. I'm very confident of that.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I do like about the Patriots is, you kind of alluded to it, is like they don't just, and like I feel like a lot of teams do this, is like when like free agency comes and trade speculation comes out, it's like they always just try to like bring in like the best player available, so to speak. The Patriots don't do that. Like they're inclined to just kind of like, let's go after what fits our system. Like, let's go after the players that fit what we want to do, that know their job and will go out and do it. I mean, that's kind of what they do. Look, they had some sparks this offseason with, bringing in Brandon Cooks via trade. They gave up a first-round pick for him. You mentioned Dwayne Allen comes in. And then they also did some good things, in the defensive side of the ball with Stephon Gilmore coming over in free agency. They still got... they re-signed Dante Hightower again this year. So, they do have some really good core pieces together, like you alluded to. And, in this division where they do get 6, really winnable games where, you'd be surprised if they lose one of those 6. That really just sets things up even nicely for them going forward.
Yeah, for sure. So that'll be a good team throughout the season. We both feel very confident about that. So,
how many wins for the Patriots this year? Give me a win total.
I
know we're still a month away from the season, so people can get hurt in preseason and whatnot. But give me a win total for the Patriots.
They're coming off a season. They won 14 games. I feel like they could be up around there.
Right.
I'm gonna go 13.
Okay.
So I don't see it.
Okay.
I don't see it quite being a 15-1 season, 16-0 like they've done before. But there's no reason to doubt them.
It's going to be like 13 or 14. It's got to be. Anything less than that, I'd be surprised. Anything more than 14, like 15 or 16-0, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think 13 or 14 is definitely most likely.
So we'll head on to. I have Miami as the next team up. I have them slightly ahead of the Bills this year. Both of those teams are very similar and very, I don't foresee myself watching either of those teams play at all this year.
Right.
Neither of them excite me. Miami's had to fill in at quarterback, bringing in Jay Cutler. Jay Ajayi did some good things last year.
Yeah, he did.
I think he's someone that would be interesting. If I'd tune in, I'd be looking out for him. I do like Jarvis Landry. He's very, very consistent. He doesn't do amazing things, but he's just been very, very solid for a long time. So they have some decent pieces, but not excited about anything really in Miami. They could have a solid defense. They have some decent pieces in place, but I'm not too hype about them.
Yeah, look, I mean, Miami's really kind of caught some tough breaks this offseason already with, like you said, Tannehill going down, tearing an ACL. You have Tony Lippett, one of their starting he was a wide receiver at Michigan State, now converted cornerback. He's a starting cornerback for this team. Just tore his Achilles tendon yesterday in practice. He's out for the season. So that's two big pieces there that you're not going to have for the entire season. A cornerback and then a cornerback. Two of the more important positions in football, cornerback especially, with it being such a passing league nowadays. I mean, I think that's a huge loss for this team. I look back to last year quickly, Zach, in a year where they go to the playoffs, okay, they get killed by the Steelers in the wild card weekend, which I don't think that's any sort of I don't think that was like surprising to anybody, considering they only beat one playoff team last year. Their schedule was ridiculously easy, which I think in turn part of the reason this team went to the playoffs last year. I think they take a step back this year. I think maybe we'll just continue this little trend here, kind of give win predictions for each team. With the injuries that this team has sustained and the more difficult schedule, I just think this team with Jay Cutler, I think 8-8's their ceiling. I really
100%.
do. I really do.
I would be amazed if they win. They did go 10-6 last year. Right. Like you said, an easier schedule. I would be mind blown if they get past 8-8. I think it's going to be more 7-9, 6-10.
Right. For sure.
So next up is going to be the Buffalo Bills. One of your boys, former Eagle, Lesean McCoy.
Yep.
As probably the only guy making that team worth watching.
Seriously. Seriously. And it's funny because they just added another former Eagle, Jordan Matthews, with the trade earlier.
That is very true.
Late last week. So, they're just kind of bringing in former Eagles left and right. So
now I'm curious, since you already brought up Jordan Matthews, I was going to ask you this anyway.
Okay.
Because you got to watch him for a couple years in the Eagles.
I did.
Do you have any reason to believe he's going to be anything there? He started out, he was fine as a rookie.
Yep.
The next year, he had over 1,000 yards. He was very solid player. Yep. Last year, he really dropped off and was just, he was a guy I was excited about. He was going to be their number one receiver, I thought. It just, he didn't bring it. He didn't produce like I thought he was, and now the Eagles are clearly moving on.
Right. I think with Jordan Matthews, I think because of the situation in Philly and him being like their best receiver they had, people looked at him as like a number one receiver and, wanted to put this like potential superstar label on him when that's just not what he is. I think he's a number two receiver, a productive number two receiver. I don't think he goes, who he reminds me of, Zach? Zach, and it's a different sport, but you'll get this relation, I feel like. He reminds me of Andre Iguodala. Like in Philly, he was like the guy. Like
that's true.
Didn't live up to the hype because in reality, he's not a superstar. He can't burden the number one player on the team. Goes to different situations where he doesn't have to be the guy and plays well. He's a Finals MVP for goodness sake.
Interesting.
So that's who I like. That's who I kind of relate Jordan Matthews to. He's going to go to Buffalo now, where he's going to be in the kind of the same situation he was in Philly. I just don't think he's going to do a whole lot. I think he's just going to give you the same thing year after year. He'll be like productive, but he's not. I mean, he's not going to be in the same category as like the top 10 wide receivers in the league. That's just
for sure.
I just don't see him taking that next step forward, and especially with a guy like Tyrod Taylor as his quarterback.
Yeah, and it's one of the lowest passing offenses in the league, and I am going to disagree with you on the Iguodala comparison.
Really?
That is one of my favorite Sixers of all time. But Jordan Matthews is not one of your favorite Eagles of all time.
But I'm just talking about from a standpoint of like being the guy, because in Philly,
but was he the guy?
After AI left?
No, I'm not arguing Iguodala. I'm saying Jordan Matthews. But when was he the guy?
As far as the wide receivers go.
By default.
Because that's what I mean.
Brick hands Nelson Aguilar was the other option.
Exactly. And it was by default, and it wasn't his fault.
But Iguodala was an all-star.
I hear you.
Matthews.
That's the way I look at it.
I'm down. All right. Part of this, I'm down on Matthews because last year I have one of my fantasy leagues.
Okay.
It's been going for about 7 years, and we
right.
just transformed it to a dynasty league, and over half the teams in the league are run by Eagles fans. And I drafted Jordan Matthews. I thought I was going to be smooth, have a piece to trade.
Wrong.
Huge disappointment. So I hate when you compare him to Andre Iguodala.
I wasn't like comparing, I wasn't like comparing the players. I was just comparing like the situation. Like
But I feel like he's in the same situation. Who's their number one? Zay Jones?
Exactly.
Anquan Bolden?
Exactly.
I feel like
Robert Woods, I think, is he still there?
Robert Woods is in the Rams.
Oh, he's on the Rams now.
He's in the same situation. Yeah.
Right.
I'm out. I'm thinking about dropping him in that league.
If I were you, I'd drop him. Now he's hurt.
First practice. First practice.
What is a chipped sternum? I'm not even sure.
I don't even know.
What is that?
That's impossible.
So with what we're saying here, with all these kind of, I guess you could say negatives with the Bills, you can't be really high on the Bills. I'm not high on the Bills. I don't
want to watch him. I love Shady McCoy.
Right.
So much fun to watch.
He's not the only player I like on that
team.
team.
Tyrod Taylor, he does some fun things.
I hate Tyrod Taylor.
All right.
I hate him.
I haven't watched him a lot.
I think it's comical he's starting. I think it's comical he's a starting cornerback in this league.
Interesting.
I'm being serious. I think it's comical he's a starting cornerback. At times he does some nice things, but doing some quote unquote nice things isn't going to win you football games and get you to the next level and get you to the playoffs where you want to go. He's not a guy you can build your team around and take to the playoffs. He's just not. So I think instead of worrying about trading wide receivers and trading cornerbacks and stuff, why don't you worry about getting a quarterback in here that's capable of you can build your team around? That organization up there is just, I feel like, so poorly run right now. If they're going to continue to go with Tyrod Taylor year after year, I mean, they're just kind of setting themselves up for failure. So look, they're breaking in a new coach this year. It's Sean McDermott. Mm-hmm. Who knows kind of how things are going to go? I mean, this stat right here I have in front of me is I had to read it twice. That's hard to believe.
What's that?
This team hasn't made the playoffs since 1999.
I did not know that. Was that the year with Frank Wycheck where they did the pass on the return?
What was it called? The Music City Miracle.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yes. That put them out of the playoffs for almost 20 years.
Yes. So
I didn't even know that.
1999, they haven't made the playoffs. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Now, I'm curious your perspective of this, because I just looked it up. Nathan Peterman was one of their draft picks this year. He's a 5th-round draft pick. That's what I had to check on. Do you think he'll get starts? I have this team as a losing team.
Okay, as do I. And I think if it trends that way, and especially if it trends that way early, I mean, this team is looking at 2-7, 2-6 at the halfway point. I mean, why wouldn't you give the kid a shot? I mean, he showed some really nice things at Pittsburgh. I mean, this kid went into Death Valley and beat Clemson last year, knocked off Clemson, and I mean, and as someone that's a big college fan, I mean, this is a guy that didn't have a ton of superstar talent around him either at Pittsburgh. I mean, this is a good kind of, and I think he fits well in the NFL. Does Nathan Peterman? Look, midway, 3/4 of the way into the season, if this team is out of contention and is really playing poorly, I think they're doing themselves a huge disservice if they don't give the kid a shot.
Interesting. That'll be interesting to see that. There are a couple teams like that I feel like if they go downhill, they could potentially have another quarterback they bring in.
Let me ask you this real quick, just to kind of get off topic really quickly. I'm really interested to hear people's perspective on this. Are you a big proponent of, because some teams just don't do it, and I really don't understand why. Are you a big proponent of, okay, so you have your quote-unquote guy in Tyrod Taylor. He's your starting quarterback, okay? I think they extended him last year, his contract, if I remember
I know they had issues. They didn't want to extend him or something like that.
But they
didn't want to give him the contract.
And so he's your guy going forward. So if he struggles this year, I mean, are you in favor of putting a rookie in and giving him a shot? Or are you just this is our guy, we're playing him, we're paying him all this money, we're going to pay him? Where do you sit on that fence? If a team is struggling, do you go to the young guy, or do you just kind of say, you know what, this is our guy, we're trotting him out there?
A lot of times you might as well take that chance. I feel like it's turned out well. I've seen it specifically with the Cowboys with someone like Dak Prescott. Right. Before him, it was Tony Romo went through the exact same thing. That Prescott was a lower draft pick. Tony Romo wasn't even drafted. They had Drew Brees, who was a big free agent signing, and was terrible. Fun fact, I was actually there for that game when Drew Bledsoe got benched and they brought in Tony Romo for the first time ever. Fun game to be at for that reason. The Cowboys got crushed by the Giants that night. But yeah, that's one of the things I got to witness there. And then he had a very good career. So the last team, I went through the Jets roster.
Okay.
And I wrote down 17 out of 53. That is how many players on the Jets roster currently I think will be in the NFL in 2 years.
Wow.
It's a mess of a roster.
Wow.
It is a mess of a roster.
17 out of 53.
Yes, that's my prediction. I'll be curious to see how that prediction turns out.
Keep track of that.
I would love to. They have some high draft picks that I think can hang around. They drafted 2 safeties this past year that are very interesting to me.
Yeah.
I've coached defensive backs before, so I always like watching those type of players. So they could be all right on defense. Offense
Is
I will not turn this team on. I will not watch one of their games. They got Josh McCown starting. I'm sure they'll go through a quarterback cycle at some point, trying out some different guys with Hackenberg and Bryce Petty there.
This is something we joked about doing, is like taking our show to the street in the future and like interviewing random people with certain things. I think this would be a great time to do that, is going out just into one of our local cities around here, and going up to your average football fan and asking them, say, "Excuse me, sir or ma'am, can you name 3 offensive players on the New York Jets?" I'm going to be honest with you. I think 9 out of 10 would not be able to give you 3 starters.
It's hard because they don't have a superstar
That's
at all.
the thing.
There's not like an easy answer.
Like 3 stars, it would be really hard for a lot of people on this team.
Yeah, a lot of people recognize the name of Matt Forte, but
Right.
he's not the first one that comes to mind when you're thinking of the Jets.
Exactly.
And it's just
They're bad. Like they're in their I saw a great headline the other day. It was suck for Sam. And that's kind of what they're doing. They're tanking for Sam Darnold, who is the quarterback, the highly touted quarterback for USC, who had a fantastic freshman year last year, and they expect big things out in Southern California for this year. And they're trying to tank and get the number 1 pick and get a quarterback in here finally after swinging and missing on so many lately. So yeah, look, the Jets they're going to be really bad. I said to you, I think this is a 1-2 win team. I really do.
I think so. I think it could be a 0-win team. Like, if they win, it's going to be off a special teams touchdown or defensive touchdown.
They play the Browns. I know is one team that they could possibly beat, and
I think the Browns will be better.
They will be, and we'll talk about them here in a little bit.
Yeah,
but I definitely think there's like 1 or only 2 games on that schedule that they could possibly win. So.
But they're just so empty on this Jets roster, and I appreciate the commitment.
Right.
It's similar to what the Sixers did at one point, just clearing out their roster and going all in on draft picks. The Jets do have a lot of high picks on the defensive end of the ball, so it's just the offense that they need a lot, and they don't really have much to build around. One guy I'll be interested to see how he does. He's in a tough position as a rookie. Ardarius Stewart was a 3rd-round pick for him there.
Alabama.
Looks like he's going to be one of their top receivers. Their other top receiver, Robbie Anderson, wasn't even drafted last year.
By the way, Robbie Anderson, he's from Temple, and
respect. Shout out to Philly, down the road.
The fact that he is on an NFL roster is mind-blowing to me. He didn't really do anything good at Temple. Like, when the ball got into his hands, he seemed to like fumble or drop it or do some boneheaded play. I mean, he's basically a deep threat. That's kind of all he is. So, yeah, they really don't have a lot going on there. I'm going to give him a benefit of the doubt. I just think the defense kind of steps up in 1 or 2 games. I'm going to give them 2 wins on the year. I'm going to give them 2 wins.
I give them 0.
You think they're going to lose every game?
0 wins for the Jets. Dude, 0-16. They're in full tank mode.
Dude, Zach, I'm telling you, man, this team could really lose every single game. And I'm telling you what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring up their schedule here, and I'm going to show you why I think they can lose every game. Because, I mean, like I said, I think they have one really winnable game, which is...
If they win, it's going to be some kind of return touchdown, some kind of fumble recovery for a touchdown, put them ahead in a close game.
They start out at Buffalo. That's a road game to start the year. That's difficult. At the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Browns, Patriots, Dolphins, Falcons, Bills, Bucks, Panthers, Chiefs, Broncos.
So Jacksonville and Cleveland, I feel like, are their best shot.
And Jacksonville's at home. Okay, so and then Cleveland's
Still don't
on the
see
road.
it. 0 wins. 0 wins.
Zero. I think they squeak out. I think they squeak out 2 somewhere in there. So
all right,
I'm going to give them 2 wins. So that wraps up the AFC East. We think obviously the Patriots win it, which I think everyone. I mean, I think my mom could tell you that the Patriots are going to win the AFC
that will
East.
not be a very competitive division.
And I think we have it kind of falling with kind of like who gives a shit after that, like. Dolphins,
not much
Bills,
excitement.
Jets. Not
much excitement at all.
Not at all.
So
man.
moving on from them, on to the AFC North next. So this is, as I was looking through the AFC division, this is the most consistent division. I feel like the Steelers are consistently solid at the top, but not way far ahead of everyone else. And then you got the Bengals and Ravens are somewhat closer in the middle. And the Browns are a team, I like some of the moves they've made. They're kind of coming up, but they're still at the bottom of that division. So we'll start at the top again. Let's break down the Steelers. I'll let you take it off first here.
Yeah, look, the big thing with the Steelers kind of is Ben Roethlisberger, really. At least,
100%.
At least to me. I mean, this guy talked about retirement in the offseason, talking about, look, he wasn't sure if he was going to come back. I mean, that's something you really need to kind of look at with I mean, he's been the face of the franchise, I mean, Christ, since we were in high school. I mean, really,
it's been a long time.
That's over 10 years. So, I mean, that's really what to look at. I mean, I saw a picture just, I think it was yesterday or over the weekend of him at training camp, walking off the field. He had 2 ice bags taped to his legs, to his knees, 1 taped to his shoulder, and I think 1 taped on like his lower back. Yeah. So I mean, he's clearly like falling apart.
He's had a lot of injury issues in the past.
Right, he's had a lot of injuries. So
he did play 14 games for them.
Right.
He only missed 2 last year,
right.
Which I was surprised. I thought it was more than that, and he's still a very good quarterback when he's out there.
Agreed, for sure. Yeah, and you get Le'Veon Bell for a full year.
Oh yeah, they have some weapons there.
You get Martavius Bryant back, who was suspended all of last year. I mean, you have Antonio
he hasn't
Brown.
been fully cleared yet.
Right. Well, no, he's cleared to resume activities with the team.
Right, but he can't play yet.
He can't play yet. Right.
Yeah. So it'll be fascinating to see
how
and make sure that is clear. But that'll be big for him. They were just putting together a patchwork of everybody last year.
Right.
And that he showed some real good skills there before he got suspended.
Big time.
So that'll be a huge addition to pair with Antonio Brown. My favorite receiver in the NFL right now. He's been fantastic, very impressive. And I expect the exact same from him. They have the third receiver is a question mark, which is better than last year because last year that was the number 2 receiver that they were throwing in Eli Rogers and
Marcus Wheaton.
Marcus Wheaton was there.
Right.
Darius Hayward-Bay, Sammy Coates.
Yep.
Just a patchwork of mediocrity, I felt like.
Yep.
And now they added Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't see him playing a lot early on, but he could factor into that, especially if he shows some things. If he makes some plays, I really have my doubts with him contributing early on.
Sure.
But really, Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant. I've read some good things about Jesse James, that he looks solid as a tight end. So they have some weapons. Defense has just kind of been in the middle lately. It's been down.
That's where you wonder
more. Yeah. So, but their offense can certainly carry them, and I feel very confident their offense alone will have them in the playoffs, unless there's a major injury to Ben Roethlisberger.
Right. They should definitely make the playoffs. I mean, I do kind of wonder kind of what we're going to see from the defense this upcoming year. I mean, this is a team that did allow 431 yards to the Patriots in the AFC Championship game last year. Let's see how that carries over into this year. Do they say, all right, that wasn't good enough, we're going to take a step forward, or is it just going to kind of be the same song and dance with them? I mean, they've kind of defense had been their calling card for so long there, like back when we were in high school and out of high school. Now
Troy Polamalu, one of my favorite players ever to watch. I'm not a Steelers fan. Obviously, I've talked about being a Cowboys fan.
Exactly.
But so much fun to watch. Such a great athlete.
Exactly.
Just so
Hopping
smart
over
how he played the game. Like, just a playmaker.
And they don't have that anymore. I mean, they really don't have it anymore. They just they're putting together some guys trying to piece together a defense here that really isn't going to quote-unquote win them games. They used to be able to win games alone with defense. They're not doing that anymore. They're an offensive-minded team. Look, they'll probably get to the playoffs. I think they will. I think they're one of the more talented teams in the NFL. One thing that's pretty staggering, and to anyone that's out there listening, you do it too, man. Look at Big Ben's stats, home versus away, they're like mind blowing. Like he's literally like 2 to 3 times better at home than he is on the road. Like it's pretty wild how
I knew there was a split there. I didn't look up the specific statistics.
It's kind of staggering how much he falls off on the road. I mean, and obviously they're one of the better home teams in football.
And that makes it tough for the playoffs, especially if they don't have home field advantage, which I figured the Patriots will claim that.
Exactly.
So Steelers won't have that, and they'll be playing away games in the playoffs. So that definitely makes it more difficult.
Exactly.
That's all I had for the Steelers. Did you want to add anything else for them before we get to the Bengals?
Not really. I mean, not really. They, I kind of look at this team. I'm going to give them, I say 11 or 12. I'll give them 12 wins.
They won 11 last year without Martavis Bryant. Yes. He'll be back. I think they'll take 12.
I'm going to go 12. So we agree there. So we agree with 12 wins on the Steelers. Okay.
Bengals are up next, and that's a team I'm excited for. This is a team I want to watch. They have some fun pieces. AJ Green is back. I'm excited to see that. He was looking incredible last year before he got injured.
He needs to stay healthy, man.
100%. So I want to see him play. I drafted him on one of my fantasy teams. I think he's going to be good. But he's there. They've got Joe Mixon they drafted. I've been reading a lot of great reports. I like some of the stuff I saw from him in college. I think it'll be interesting to see if he contributes from the start or if they're going to start Jeremy Hill. They have a good collection of running backs between those two and Gio Bernard. So that'll be interesting to watch. And this is another team with 2 quarterbacks. Andy Dalton has been around for a while. He's been very solid. There have been a lot of teams asking about A.J. McCarron as the backup quarterback. So I'm intrigued if something happens, if they have more injury issues, if they have a bad season. Do they give him a chance? He's got 2 more years left, so they could trade him in the offseason. That'll be interesting to see if things go poorly. I doubt it'll be something that'll be a significant quarterback issue, but it could be.
They talked about, well, it's funny you bring that up. They actually talked about that kind of over the last year about possibly trading him. I mean, I know
I've seen a lot of talk.
Some teams inquired about him. They kind of liked what they saw when he had some starts earlier in his career, and they kind of liked what they saw from McCarron. I mean, he's a winner. He came from Alabama, where he did some nice things. So, I mean, that will be interesting. I think he could definitely get a look somewhere else. Not so sure it's going to be in Cincinnati. I think if he wants to be a starter, which I'm sure he does, he might have to look elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the Bengals. I mean, very similar to the Steelers. I mean, that offense is loaded. I mean, you got, like you said, Giovanni Bernard, Jeremy Hill. You got Joe Mixon now, who, I mean, that you want to talk about athlete. Joe Mixon is a ridiculous athlete. And then, of course, you got A.J. Green on the outside with Tyler Eifert at tight end. If he could finally put together a full season and stay healthy. So, I mean, this team really has some, and then they drafted
John Ross too.
Yeah, John Ross. What's he run, like a 4.27 or something?
He's one. I feel like he's not going to be a consistent contributor, but he's going to have a couple games where he has 2 catches for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns.
But he's
something like that.
But he's like a Deshaun Jackson to the fact where when he's on the field, you have to pay attention to him.
Yeah, he'll burn you.
Look, he might not catch a ball that whole game, but he's opening it up for other people. Like, someone that can take the top of a defense it is so important in today's NFL to at least have that threat. So, yeah, offensively, this team's going to be ridiculous. Defensively is kind of where, they hope they kind of can maybe take a step forward. I mean, this is a team in the Bengals that, people nationally wonder about with how many more years is Marvin Lewis going to get? I mean, this is Marvin Lewis. I think this was going to be his 15th year with the Bengals.
I didn't realize it's been that long. He hasn't been there for a while.
I mean, now that Jeff Fisher's out of the league, who was Mr. Mediocrity, I mean, I get to go 8-8 every year and coach for the last 25 years. Now that he's out of the league finally, I think this is the next guy that you kind of look at and say, why does he still have a job? Exactly what does he do? I mean, this situation right here is a... Let me see if this example works for you, because the Iguodala one didn't work for you. Let me see if this comparison works. Now, he didn't accomplish the same things that this guy did, but it's similar where they're at in their careers. He reminds me of Andy Reid. Like, he's kind of like he's wearing out his welcome. Like, I know Reed got to 4 straight NFC Championship games, got the Eagles to a Super Bowl, didn't win it, but he at least won some games. Marvin Lewis hasn't won really anything. I think, what's he have, 1 playoff win in his career, that, or if that. But I think he's at the point in his career like Reed was, where it's like, okay, you did some nice things for us, but it's time to move on. And I think I think if they have a struggle this year, I think they have to cut ways. But I feel like I say that every year, man.
So do you think it'd be similar, that if he'd get fired, he'd find another job quickly like Andy Reid did?
The way the NFL is, I wouldn't be surprised. If I was, I'm going to be honest with you, if I was at GM, I would not hire this guy. I wouldn't.
But Jeff Fisher stayed around forever, and he was terrible.
And that's the thing. And that's the thing you wonder about. Like, you wonder,
he
like,
lived off of those great Titans teams.
Exactly. I don't get it. I don't get it. So yeah, with the Bengals, I think this can be a team that sneaks in and gets a wild card berth. I do, depending on kind of how, health's a big thing
for sure.
Health's a big thing. I put them at, I think their ceiling's like 10 wins. I'll give them 10 wins.
I would say that is the ceiling. Yeah. I think more like 8-8, maybe 9-7. They could pull that out. They only won 6 games last year.
True.
But they did have that with the injuries to Gio Bernard, to AJ Green, that definitely hurt them.
I just really like this offense. If they can all stay healthy, I know it's a big if, but if they can all stay healthy, I mean, this is an offense that can really put up some points, man.
Yeah, I agree. I'd go 9-7. I think they'll be slightly ahead of the Ravens for second place there in the division. Okay. Which is the next team we're moving on to.
Good segue.
So this is a team, we talked a little bit with the Patriots, how they're good at patching different players together. The Ravens, I feel like, did the same thing, but poorly. They just have a mess at receiver, at running back, at tight end. There's nobody that I'm excited about. It's just a combination of guys that do different things, and they're nice pieces, but it doesn't leave you as that good of a team. It's just, maybe you'll be 8-8.
Right.
It's just Joe Flacco, he's fine. He's a solid quarterback. He's just not that exciting. He's not going to make a huge difference to their team at receiver. They've got some guys that have had some success, but are on the downside of their career. Mike Wallace, Jeremy Maclin. Brashad Perryman's just been hurt his whole career. I'd love to see him be successful. He has great athletic ability. He just keeps getting hurt, and I'll believe it when I see it. But then tight end, they just, I think it's going to be Ben Watson probably there. Running back, I was high on Kenneth Dixon. Okay. I thought he was ready to be.
He's a good player.
He was going to have that suspension no matter what at the beginning. I thought he was in a perfect situation to be a very solid player there. And he's already out for the season, which is very unfortunate. Yep. So they're going to have their clear short yardage back, their first and second down back with Terrence West, and their clear third down receiving back in Danny Woodhead. Neither of those really do the other thing at all. So it's something that it's very obvious what they're doing. I just don't like how the team's set up. I don't think they're going to have very good success. I think it's going to be around a 6-10 season for them. That's
where I do. I'm not high on the Ravens at all this year. I mean, we want to talk about the Jets offense being bad. This is another offense that I think is really going to struggle. I talked to a couple of my friends, we've kind of, just, like anyone does, you get together, you talk about sports and not just your favorite teams, you talk about, other teams as well. And this is a team that I had talked about and I was not high on, and they kind of disagreed to an extent, but I think that their offense, I mean, you want to talk about what this team I guess you could say what this team doesn't have. I mean, like Jeremy Maclin and like you said, like who's their tight end? I mean, Flacco, he's hurt for God's sakes now.
Yeah, he's going to miss the entire preseason.
Right. They say he's going to be ready to start the season, but I mean, it's a back injury if I remember correctly, right? I mean, with Romo, you're one hit away from being out for the year.
It's true.
That's just the way it is with a back injury. So
the backup, Ryan Mallett does not inspire a lot of confidence.
I mean, they talked about potentially signing Kaepernick. Obviously, that didn't happen, so they're riding with Ryan Mallett.
And I went through those rough seasons as a Cowboys fan, where it was a patchwork of a mess behind Romo when he got hurt, and that's That's really what they're relying
the John
on.
Kitnas of the world.
Oh man, there is a whole bunch of people in there
was.
that it just
But yeah,
don't want to do that again.
I just don't see this team really taking a step forward. I mean, I think this is a team that is going to play probably a lot of like 21-17 kind of games, you know, really try to hang in there with defense, but this is a defense that secondary last year was terrible. I mean, they allowed 28 passing touchdowns last year. For a Ravens team, that's bad. I mean, that's
historically good defense,
exactly.
But they were rough to watch.
That is really
rough
bad
statistically.
So, and playing in this division doesn't do them any favors either. So, I don't like what I'm seeing from the Ravens at all.
So, do you agree 6-10? You think worse than that?
Yeah, I go 5. I go like 5-6 wins, maybe 7 if they catch fire. But yeah, I'm not high on this team at all, man.
Mike Wallace did impress me last year. I thought he was going to do nothing. He was going to be out of the league after a year. He did solidly. I think they'll get some contribution. Now,
but that was with Steve Smith there.
That is true.
Now he's gone.
Now they've replaced him with Jeremy Maclin. As a former Maclin fan when he was on the Eagles, do you think he has anything left?
I mean, it's funny because when Maclin was on the Eagles, I was actually one of his biggest fans. I have his jersey. Like, I just really liked Maclin. I liked his game. He was reliable. The last, ever since he left, he's kind of been battling injury. He wasn't in a very pass-friendly offense in Kansas City. Comes here, I think he can do some nice things. I don't think he's going to be anything that sets the world on fire. I think he'll be productive, so to speak, but I mean, he's not going to do anything to really kind of grab your attention and make you say, "Wow, Jeremy Maclin's back." So
yeah, I feel very similar. Like he'll be productive. Right. He might be someone that can contribute like a bye week for your fantasy team, but nothing too exciting there. So last team in this division, we're gonna go on to the Cleveland Browns. Like I brought up earlier, this is a team I like some of the things they've done.
Agreed.
Quarterback, rough. They do not have a solution there as of right now. I think all three guys could start. Yeah. Osweiler, Cody Kessler, and DeShone Kizer at some point throughout the year. I feel like whoever's going to start at the beginning is probably going to be benched at some point. And I'm intrigued to see what DeShone Kizer has. I'm sure he'll get a chance at some point, whether it's this year or next year. But they have some good pieces at running back. I think Isaiah Crowell he's very solid. He's in the upper half of top running backs in the NFL. He's right around that region. Duke Johnson's a solid receiving back. I like what they did at receivers. They might have overpaid a little bit for Kenny Britt, but they had to do that to replace Terrell Pryor, what he was doing. I think he was going to fit in well. And then Corey Coleman, the young guy right there with him. Those are some exciting players. They brought in the tight end Njoku. So I'll be interested. A lot of times tight ends don't really contribute early on, but I'll be interested to see if he's making some plays, if he starts contributing from the beginning. So I think they'll be better than 1-15 last year.
Agreed.
Not saying a whole lot. They might win. They might go about 4-12. So they're still going to get a top draft pick. They're not going to be a lot better, but I feel like they're moving in a better direction.
No, I definitely think they are. It's funny. The quarterback that starts the year is definitely not the quarterback that's going to finish the year, like you kind of alluded to. I definitely would agree with that. And I think, look, this is a team. Look, you're the Cleveland Browns. Look, and I view things very differently than NFL GMs do and NFL owners do, just because it's not my money that I'm shelling out and putting into these players, so I get that. But, look, I've always been under the assumption, like especially with a team like the Browns, okay? It's nice. Everyone wants to go into the regular season with it's our year. Like anything can happen. No, it can't. Like the Browns are
still the Browns.
Are still the Browns. You're going to win. You're going to be in the top 5, if not definitely the top 10, if not the top 5 with draft picks next year. You're going to be poor. See what you got. Start. Okay, whoever's the number 1 quarterback right now, whether it's Kessler or whether it's Osweiler, let them start the first 4 games of the season. Then start the next quarterback the next 4 games of the season. Then start Kizer the next 3 games. Like, see what you have so you can kind of get some sort of feel, not just, okay, we have 3 quarterbacks on the roster that we brought in, and now we don't know, like, what to do with them. So at least, like, get a sense of what you have, and like, because, look, it's not that big of a deal, in my opinion, if you're the Browns, if 3 quarterbacks start this year or if 1 starts. In my opinion, I don't think that's that big of a deal. with the Browns because they're not going to do anything. So why not see what you have?
I agree when it comes to Kaiser. I think we've already seen Osweiler. Kessler's already gotten some chances. They're not going to be franchise changers.
No.
I think one of them starts at the beginning and try, as long as you feel like he's ready, that's based on the coaches, as long as they feel he's ready, get Deshaun Kaiser in at some point in the season so you see what he can do. He can get that game experience. He was a second-round pick.
Right.
They clearly think very highly of this guy. So I think it's a great opportunity to get him a chance at some point. They're not going to be a great team, but you give the chance to Kessler or Osweiler, whoever you think is going to be better, to have a good season.
Right.
And because there's been guys like that. A guy like Rich Gannon was a journeyman quarterback for forever, and he was a 2-time Pro Bowl MVP. He had some crazy years at the end of his career.
University of Delaware, go Blue Hens.
There you go. But he was a fun guy in the early 2000s to watch that just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yep.
So you kind of take that chance with one of those guys, see if they can be productive.
They shouldn't have brought in Osweiler, though. I'm sorry. Look, he's terrible.
I love what they did with that.
No.
They got a pick to take him on.
No.
They had all this cap space they weren't spending anywhere. But it's the exact NBA move that they've been doing for years.
But he's like, but he's not going to do anything. Like, he's not an NFL quarterback. Like
I agree.
Like the Texans overpaid something ridiculous for him last year.
The Texans made the playoffs despite him.
Right. Like
100%.
Like I said, like that was the biggest mistake of the offseason last year, and he would be terrible, and he was. And I think him coming in here, look, if I was a Browns fan or if I was a Browns GM, I would have been like, all right, let's just go into the season with Kessler 1. Look, we kind of like what we saw from him last year when he played. Let's give him the start, and then if he kind of struggles, we'll go to Kaiser and see what he has because we put a second-round pick on him. And which, by the way, in their first preseason game, Kaiser looked pretty dang good. So, yeah. And look, they have some nice weapons around him. I like Corey Coleman. He got banged up last year. That kind of hindered his rookie season a little bit. But, yeah, I kind of like what they did, and I like what they did in the draft. They got Jabril Peppers out of Michigan, who, from all the stuff that I've been reading, is having an amazing camp. Reporters were saying yesterday, the day in camp he had yesterday, pretty much locked up a starting role for him. So I kind of like what
I was seeing that too.
I like
good reports.
I like what they did. I like what they did in the draft. So I think they're moving in the right direction. They remind me of the Raiders. The Raiders, like, were such a joke for so long. Like, they couldn't draft. Like, they were, taking Darius Hayward-Bay with the fifth overall pick. Like, come on. Like, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. Like, and then Al Davis passed away. And then they kind of got back to being like, okay, let's draft responsibly. Like, let's do things the right way. And now,
real off-topic comment. Have you seen Mark Davis's hair?
Dude, it's ridiculous.
Oh my God. How did you do that?
It kind of looked like Jerry Jones is at the Hall of Fame ceremony.
I don't know. Jerry Jones doesn't have that much hair.
But did you see his hair? Did you see his hair at the Hall of Fame game?
I did. I was watching a little bit of that,
Look
but
it
I
up.
missed.
It's classic.
Man.
But no, Mark Davis' hair is really that. But you give him credit.
Google that. Go take a look.
No, sir. If you haven't seen it, you have to Google it.
That's bad. Like, I don't know why you would do that to yourself.
You're so right, though. But yeah, like with what the Raiders are doing now, look, this is a team that made the playoffs last year now after being out for so long.
I love that comparison.
Right, though. I think that's what Cleveland's kind of doing. Like, let's get back to drafting well. They had a really good draft on paper this past year. Let's see how it plays out. But I think they're kind of moving in the right direction, and let's see how it transitions this year. But yeah, I think 4 wins. I think 4 wins is doable for Cleveland. Absolutely. I don't think that's kind of a stretch. I think 3-4 wins. I think that's what they'll get to.
And to complete your comparison, I had to look it up. I didn't remember this off the top of my head.
What?
Derek Carr, second-round pick.
There
just
you go.
like Deshaun
Just
Kaiser.
like Kaiser, right.
So hopefully, for the Browns' sake, he can
Yes.
be just like that, come in, build his career up, just like Derek Carr, and build the team up into a playoff contender. They made the playoffs last year.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening to part 1 of our AFC preview. We'll be back with the next one, bringing you part 2, where we'll cover the rest of the teams and divisions in the AFC, more of our thoughts, some predictions, and of course, the random off-topic things that come up throughout our episodes. So it should be a great time. We'll see you back here.